into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
Okay, so you got punched in the face?
Yeah, I got punched in the face at an open mic.
Please tell me what happened.
I was talking to some comics out in the bar area, and we were dude playing pool comes up to me, and he gets right in my face, and he puts his hand on my chest, and he's like, "Move, I gotta take my shot." And I'm like, "I'll move, just don't touch me." And then
It's reasonable.
And then he grabs my arm, and he's like, "You gotta fucking move." And I pushed his hand off, and I'm like, "Dude, don't touch me." And then he's like, "Fuck you." And I'm like, "Fuck you." And then boom, right in the face.
Oh. So that had nothing to do with stand-up comedy?
Nothing to do with stand-up.
Oh, what a disappointment.
Is it a bit yet?
What? No.
What's the bit?
Well, you know.
I got punched in the face. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be roasting you.
Yeah, how long have you been doing this impression of me?
Everyone does it.
Just the last 3 hours we've been here.
You and me both are people that every person you know does an impression of you. Not everyone tells you. They're all pretty accurate.
Yeah, I mean that's very hurtful.
Well, I don't know what you're fucking talking about,
Yeah,
Jake.
see, I'm just telling you now, so it doesn't all come.
Just
crashing
read
down
about
later.
Antifa.
Hello, welcome to Pod Damn America. I am Jake Flores. I have with me. Let's go around the room.
Raghav Mehta.
David Spector.
Anders Lee here.
Okay, yeah. So we have David Spector in the house as a guest. Welcome. I saw something fucking awesome this week, guys. Really lifted my spirits. I was biking around town, and a mail truck stopped in the middle of an intersection. Everyone got really mad at it. No one can get around this mail truck, right? And I was about to get really pissed off because I was like, why is this mail truck stopped just in the middle of fucking up traffic? And I look into the cockpit of the, I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
Mail. It's like one of the, it's like
The window, Jake.
Jake just forgot the word window, everybody.
But it's a mail truck, so it's like one of those. It's like you're 10 feet in the air, like that
Yeah.
weird shit, like you're driving a UPS thing. You can barely see this guy in there, and I just see him holding something and just cocking his head, like real in a
A lot
calculated
of cocks
fashion.
in the story already.
And then he just fucking whips this package at someone in the street, and the car drives away, and he just smacked another male person in the back of the head with someone's mail. And this woman's just like, "Oh, Carl!" Like they knew each other. It's my favorite shit ever. All right, welcome to the show.
Melee. Yeah.
That is
Hey,
pretty
guys.
awesome when, like, bureaucrats are just, like, really awful to each other and you're kind of, like, there. Like, I remember I got picked up by a cab from the Albany bus station, and the cab driver had a beef with one of the security people, and he was like telling me like, this guy claims to be a Navy SEAL, he's not a Navy SEAL. And so we did like a loop around the bus station, and he stopped and was like, hey, Navy SEAls don't look like garbage bags with legs. And this guy was like, you know what, fuck you, and they're just like screaming, and I'm like in the back with my backpack, like not sure what to do.
I hope eventually our Congress can just devolve into like what Parliament is, where they jump around and scream at each
Yes.
other.
They wear
Sometimes.
wigs and they like whip each other and shit.
Yeah, that'd be great.
They
We
bang
should have
gavels.
roast battles in Congress by now. Like, fuck a State of the Union. The people should just be roasting each other.
We should have regular battles. They should
Yeah.
fight and pro wrestle each other and shit. Speaking of pro wrestling, and I don't know how else to segue into this. The president's talking on TV right now.
Who was once featured on pro wrestling.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And he like legit thought it was real too. Like he called them and it was like, I don't like that you did that to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like he was
Really?
like
Wait.
worried. Like, yeah, he sounded like he thought the storyline was legit. Like,
Wait.
like I don't remember like the specifics of it, but like I don't know.
Like he called up Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
And he was like,
And
Stone
he's
Cold
like-
was too mean.
He's like, I don't like that you said that to the Undertaker or some shit. I thought that was a little harsh. He's fucking so cool, man.
He was just blending the reality, the line or whatever.
Yeah, he was adding
Yeah.
to the storyline.
He's an artist.
Yeah.
And
Freddie
then-
Prinze Jr. writes apparently for WWE, right?
Doesn't
Yeah.
wait, Freddie Prinze Jr.?
Freddie Prinze Jr. That's what he retired from acting in movies, and now he writes for.
It's like
I
a
think it's
prestigious
WWE.
writing job because they
Yeah.
have this shit where ever since like someone decided to break the third wall, they now have this meta thing going on in pro wrestling where like the part of the writing is like tying in shit that happens in reality to the narrative in the story and stuff. It's like very Charlie Kaufman now. There's a great NPR episode about it. I'm not a wrestling nerd, by the way. I might be. Someone's probably screaming at their phone. It's not what it's called, but that's like the basic tenet to it. It's really fun, actually. I didn't ever watch the shit when I was a kid, so I'm not part of this weird like 30-year-old wrestling renaissance that's going on in comedy right now. But good for you guys. I think I understand.
Patrice O'Neal used to write for the WWE.
I thought you were gonna say he wrestled. That'd be so fucking cool.
That's how he died. Yeah. It was diabetes. He died in
Did he
WWE.
sumo wrestle? What are you talking about?
Yeah. Okay, so this definitely happened. Trump called Triple H and was like worried about him.
Just a hello, Triple H. Like that.
Are you?
Hello.
Yeah. Triple H like went on Opie and Anthony. The story just gets better and better. More the best of America in the story. But yeah, he went on Opie and Anthony and was like, yeah, I think Trump thought it was fucking real. 'Cause he called me and that stuff.
Oh man, that rules.
Yeah, that's so good.
So the State of the Union is happening right now. We've got it on a screen. It's muted. You can we don't need to. We know you can pretty much guess what the fuck he's talking about.
I hope he addresses the Stormy Daniels situation.
That would be so badass.
Yeah.
Just in the State of the Union. I'm sure we'll-
touched that bitch ever. Yeah.
Where he goes the opposite. Like, yeah, I do like to get spanked from porn stars, and I'm in charge now.
And then he just does it.
Yeah.
That'd be badass. My prediction for this was that he would. This is my prediction for at some point before Trump's out of office. I bet he'll play a guitar, like behind the podium, and try to lead us in a sing along. That's what I.
You think he
want
can
to
play
happen.
guitar?
No, I want to see him like attempt to, and then insist that it was good. That seems like it's in his wheelhouse.
I
You
had
know-
a similar thing. I thought he was just gonna devolve midway through the speech and just start quoting Slipknot lyrics.
He did want to go to film school. He thought about it.
You really?
Yeah, but he decided to go to Wharton instead.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
and
like
he
a-
probably could have been he was rich. He could have been a producer.
Oh,
or something.
man.
Wow,
He
he
would've
is like
made-
Hitler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Holy
that's
shit.
Very on the nose.
Yeah.
Do you
Well,
think
Hitler
he-
wanted to go to art school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of movies do you think he would have made?
What?
Fucking Fast and the Furious.
He would have made the most badass, like
Yeah.
glamorous, excessive. Michael
Oh yeah, he
Bay
totally would have
shit.
been Michael Bay, dude.
It would be about billionaire like.
It would be
heroes.
Transformers with huge
The
tits.
movie where the billionaire, he's like,
Transformers, but racist. Even more racist.
yeah.
He would probably, if he had gone that route, though, he probably would have been Weinstein. Like, there's an alternate universe where Weinstein's president
shit.
right now, and
Oh, yeah,
Trump
yeah.
went down.
Yeah.
Something fun to think about.
I thought Trump would be getting Me Too right now, huh?
Yeah.
So one thing that's happening at the State of the Union that I think is kind of funny is Randy Bryce, the guy who's running in Wisconsin, try to unseat Paul Ryan, who's a big kind of Medicare for all, lefty, cool.
Iron Stash.
Great guy.
The
Great
Iron
campaign ad.
Stash, yeah. I saw an article that was like he got invited to this, so he's sitting somewhere in there, and he just like the angle of this article, which I think it was kind of bullshit because his quotes didn't really correlate with it, but they were like that he's like sitting in a position to where he could just mean mug like Paul Ryan the whole time. Not even Trump, because he's trying to take down Paul Ryan or whatever, and like the Wisconsin elite were very distraught over it or whatever, because he got brought in as a guest of some Wisconsin politician. But I think that's cool. I like him a lot. He's been flirting with liberals lately, which bums me out, but he seems like a cool guy. But then also, so we've got this happening, and then in response to this, there are all these like fucking epic takedown responses from various liberals and Democrats.
Oh
and shit.
yeah.
Namely the weird inbred, gnarly, pale, gingery Kennedy kid.
Young Conan O'Brien.
Yep.
Yeah. Somebody pointed out that he, like the Kennedys, there's this spike where they did really well until color television was a thing. Because they're just that kid's so jarring to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kennedy won because he was on television, and now there's colored television. They're all fucked.
Yeah, the man looks good in silver.
Maple Cocaine had a great tweet about it, where it's like a political article. It was like, "Can Joe Kennedy beat the State of the Union curse?" And he's just like, "If there's one thing we know about Kennedys, it's their immunity to curses."
Something I have. I mean, this is maybe more true in the Midwest, because I remember being kind of struck by this when I moved to New York. Is there's like not as much of like an ethnic identity among white people in the Midwest. You're just kind of white or you're not. Whereas here it's like, you're Italian, Irish, Polish, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I will say that like Irish people, especially like old Irish people, like my mom's age, like the Kennedys can do no wrong.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Like
in Minnesota and Wisconsin, like you're just Scandinavian basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Kennedys can do no wrong,
Yeah.
except
The
all the
Kennedys
wrong they did.
If
Have
you
done
wanna
a lot
upset-
of wrong, yeah.
Yeah, so much. And even like JFK was like would have gone into Vietnam, like he was trying to go into Vietnam. If the whole Bay of Pigs thing,
Yeah.
like they keep saying like, oh, he didn't really want to do it. People, but like, who? I mean,
Well, that's something RFK said after he was dead, and you can pretty much say anything you want about a dead guy. Like,
Yeah.
you can't disprove it.
exactly. If
I've
he had
done it.
lived, we would not romanticize him at all. He would
Yeah.
just be some like schmuck.
JFK's like Bill Hicks.
Yeah.
If he was still around, he would not be what we imagined.
Yeah, you would be Alex Jones right now.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, he still is alive. Yeah, no, I know a lot of old people that have that weird Kennedy thing. Old Catholics. And
Most
shit,
liberals
too.
do.
Kennedy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand like idolizing Bobby Kennedy or some shit like that. 'Cause-
Well, I mean, even there, the history is more complicated. He didn't. I mean, he had some really amazing speeches, but he was also very conservative on stuff. It was
yeah.
yeah. And he started attacking left just because like he thought that would win him the primary. It wasn't like he. What I'm saying is
You're shitting on a dead man. That's what you're doing, Spector.
I'm glad he's got assassinated, and I think it's a good thing.
I'm still imagining him as Bill Hicks, just like smoking a cigarette up there and shit, and just like screaming like, "I have the microphone!" All these old people are like, "Oh, he's so good."
They won't put me on Letterman.
Yeah.
JFK's too edgy for Letterman.
Hell yeah, dude! It's a different time back then. That was edgy.
Yeah.
Not like now where you got to take a shit on stage or whatever. You know.
Yeah.
Gigi Allen already did that.
What is edgy in comedy right now? I feel like we turned everything topsy-turvy upside down and,
Where now if you give the liberal perspective, that's like the mainstream.
yeah.
Yeah.
But even also giving a conservative perspective is kind of mainstream too, where maybe you could attack both sides, which is also my least favorite kind of comedy.
Yeah.
I don't like any comedy anymore. It's
Yeah.
all so, like, yeah.
No, there's no edge anymore, man, because like there's just no shock value to anything because we're inundated with we consume so much entertainment and we're so overstimulated. Like, what's really gonna shock us at this point?
Well, isn't it also like where we've already seen everything that would be shocking to us? Like if we were,
Yeah, we've seen Goatsy.
yeah, we've seen
Yeah.
Goatsy. Like
Yeah.
if I were a kid watching George Carlin for the first time, I would still probably be like, "Oh my God, this
Yeah.
is so out there."
Yeah. And if like when I started comedy, like Jesselnick was a big thing, and like sure it was like edgy, but it was like, well, these jokes don't offend me at all. It's just like, oh, this is just funny comedy.
But I don't really get offended. Like, do you ever get offended by jokes? I
No.
mean, that impression of me thing is cut pretty deep. But other than
Yeah,
that,
and I'm glad it did.
Wouldn't
We
that-
like to make the guests feel vulnerable
You mean
as
like-
soon as they enter the room.
That's how hard you need to cut though to offend someone like us. Literally, like the comedian in the screen would have to turn and look directly into your eyes and start doing an impression of you.
Yeah.
like Chappelle just in his
Yeah.
special.
That would be.
It's not about your race. It's just you. I don't know. I've seen like a lot of people do hacky like Indian stuff, but I wasn't like, oh, I'm so offended. I was just like, this is lame.
Yeah.
Like because like most comedy, like if you do stand up long enough, most of it becomes very boring, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you just watch the same stuff over and over again. You recognize the same like 6 or 7 forms of stand up comedy, and then you like after that, like you don't really get offended as much as you're like offended by how maybe hack it is or how like aggressively unoriginal it is. or
I mean, the
something.
closest I've ever gotten to being offended is when like a comic will just like make someone really uncomfortable, and then I'm like, it's still not like quite being offended, but I remember thinking like there was somebody who had this. He would open his bit with like, "Hey, has anybody here given up a child for adoption?" And like I could imagine like someone I knew who had done that, like being there and just like raising their hand. It's like, how would that go? Like maybe he could turn it into something really hilarious, but probably not.
But
you know?
is his goal with that to like make someone uncomfortable, or is the goal with that knowing that that's an inappropriate question to ask like an audience, and like that's what the humor he was going for?
Well, yeah, but it's like people probably, even if that is true, most people wouldn't respond to it, you know?
Yeah, like
But if somebody does and he's not prepared for that, then I think it's like kind of a pointless joke.
But is like, are you offended by that though?
Yeah.
The
I'm not
concept
offended
of being
by it, no.
offended is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because like, there's this old blog, it's kind of like Internet 1.0 blog that was kind of famous for a while called "What Stuff White People Like." It was really
Right.
good. Every month it was like, you know, pea coats or like something
Yeah.
really kind of trenchant and cultural like that.
That was like
to make you laugh.
pre-woke, right?
Yeah. But
Pre-woke culture.
it is pre-woke because one of the best, like, in the culminating posts they did was, you know, stuff white people like chapter fucking whatever, being offended. It was a
Yeah.
really funny article. It was like
that's funny.
the photo was, you know, somebody with their hand over their mouth, you know, like, oh, you know.
Yeah.
And it sort of explored the concept of being, like, performatively offended.
That's the original I want to speak to your manager joke.
yeah.
Which is like the hack I'm a white lady joke.
Yeah.
Like that's if you go to any Bushwick show, you will see that joke every other show.
Oh,
Guarantee
yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like I've seen stuff that like made me mad and stuff. Well, one time before I started comedy, I was in the audience and I looked like this. I had a beard, and the comedian on stage, who was a comedian I ended up working with years later, opening for.
Bill Cosby.
Yeah,
go
yeah,
on.
yeah. Personal hero of mine looked at me and was like, "Hey, brother," he's a white guy. He's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, brother, did you drive a cab here?"
Uh,
And I was like, come on, man. And like,
Yeah.
I just thought it was like lame and stupid, and I was like, just get on with your joke. And he could tell I was not playing along. And what happened was a bunch of his friends were in the audience, like friends from high school and stuff. And he's like in his 30s, and like he's like not a bad dude, but I could tell he felt bad about saying that.
yeah.
And so he kept turning back to me and he's like, "Oh, you're so pissed at me right now." So this is how you know he's not a very good comedian.
Yeah, yeah.
And but he's like, "You're so pissed." I'm like, "Yeah, it sucked, but like keep doing your act, dude."
Yeah.
And
But Rogov, did you drive a cab there?
well, I drove an Uber there, but no, this is pre-Uber.
Rode a
But,
rickshaw for some people.
This is also in Minneapolis, where most of the cab drivers are Somali, not Indian or Arab or Muslim. But
Yeah,
like,
idiots.
which was a nuance I didn't get into.
He should have
but-
said that racist joke at a Somali person.
Yeah, exactly. Who was sitting right next to me. But no, and then like what happened was he kept interrupting his own set to talk about how bad he felt, and then his audience started getting mad at me for being offended, and literally some
Oh,
fucking
man.
asshole from St. Cloud yells at me and said, "Why'd you come to a comedy show if you don't have a sense of humor?" I'm like, "All right, I'm out of here. I
Oh
had to
my God.
leave this comedy show."
Jesus.
First time
Yeah.
I got heckled was before I ever did comedy. Yeah.
So that's the other side of shit. I guess my point here is I think that there's not at the center of all this. There's not really a person being deeply offended. There's just like this shitty person on one side that thinks of it all in one way, and then these shitty people on the other side that are like, "Oh, triggered lib" or whatever. And it's just
Yeah,
sort of this
yeah.
thing that wraps around like a 0 point, and like nothing really exists in the middle that we all are basing the arguments on or something.
Well,
I don't know.
The super woke, like at least in the open mic scene, woke comics who are trying to police everybody's jokes, and then the super other side, edgy comedians who just say hate speech, like they're kind of the same person because all they're trying to do is like affect the world with their comedy.
They're totally two sides of the same coin. I mean,
They're both fucking hall monitors, dude.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what they
yeah.
are. They're fucking cops at
really
comedy
think
shows.
the fucking, I mean, whatever. I'll go on about this in another episode or whatever. But like the just ideology of the identity politics shit and the I'm injured socially by this thing, and then also like the people that are alt right and white supremacists kind of are working on the same things. Before we get out of this, I want to the one joke I've been I would use the word offended by in the last year or so of doing comedy was I saw a comic on stage do a bit. Let me walk you through why I'm like offended by it. Not offensive is maybe not the word, but there was this this white woman who was doing a joke about how her father worked in Texas and his jobs kept getting stolen by Mexicans. And that was pretty much the whole of the joke. Mm-hmm. So my brain exploded because I was watching it and like 5 things happened. I was like, whoa, like this is...
I was one of the Mexicans. I stole her dad's job.
That felt great. Stop making fun of me. It's the best thing that ever happened to me.
It's the only way I can come.
No, I mean, what bothered me is I was like, oh, this person's getting away with saying this, and they're also like probably welcomed into the New York comedy scene as being kind of woke and shit and liberal. It sounds like there's hypocrisy there. The other part of me that was really annoyed by it was like, this is just a racist statement. Yeah. And I personally have stock in that thing that you're talking about, so it's a little annoying. But if you made it funny enough, like I listen to Come Town and shit. If you made it funny enough, I would be totally on board. Yeah. So I was offended on like a comedic level. Yeah. To a point where I was like, just like make it funny, but you seem like you actually believe this. So the less funny it is, the less in jest it is, and the less like ironic it is. It sounds like you're actually just saying that you believe that Mexicans steal jobs, and that's like unsettling.
Yeah.
I don't know if the word's
I
offensive.
know what you mean. Sorry, but
no, go ahead.
No, like there's a lot of feminist comedians who will do jokes about catcalling, and when they do the voice of the catcaller, they always do like a black voice. Like
right.
a stereo, like an Amos and Andy.
So that's
kind
why
of
it
thing.
bothered me, is because like if it's couched in that like, I am being downtrodden on like point of view, and it's racist, it sounds like you're just being racist.
It's like a side way in where they can be racist, but like from a feminist perspective.
But if you were like over the top, like being a dick about it, I'd be like, that's just hilarious.
I do think though with like I mean, I actually don't think there's anything wrong with pushing your ideology through like comedy or whatever. But if you actually take things like racial justice and like sexual equality seriously, then the way we have to move forward is going to be contradictory. It's going to be messy. If you actually want to make that stuff funny, then you're going to have to like do stuff that's uncomfortable. I think about all the time. What if Raghav called David a filthy Jew? Like, how am I supposed to react to that?
Yeah.
That's
like,
hilarious.
what do
Just
I
like
do?
old times.
What do
Like
white
he
people
did.
do when different races are?
the microphone.
Yeah,
the
contradictions.
I have one more example, but the only thing, the problem I have is about if you make it funny enough, then do it. But the problem is most people aren't very funny. Yeah. So then a bunch of shitty people do it. But the best thing that happened to me when I was doing last year, I was doing comedy in Minneapolis. Is I used to perform at this club. And I just matched with some girl on Tinder, and she messaged me, and she's like, "Hey, are you a comedian?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, "Were you at so-and-so club on Thursday?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I was." And it's like, "Oh, I remember you. You were the guy doing gross jokes about how women on Tinder are like whales you have to harpoon."
Whoa.
And I'm like,
that's meta, dude. That's like a...
Yeah, Raga meta. But no, and I was like, no, that wasn't me. And then I thought about it. I'm like, oh, that was another brown comedian. Oh my God. Yeah. So she like messaged me. She's like, "Yeah, I found that objectifying and disgusting." And I was like, "You have me confused with this brown comedian," who I sent her a picture of, which, quite frankly, I find objectifying and disgusting. And I took a screenshot of it and showed all my friends, and then by that time she had unmatched me. She didn't even apologize. She just fucking unmatched me. And of course she was a white girl.
That's like a kaleidoscope.
It was amazing. Yeah.
That had so many layers.
Yeah.
That's so good.
She
Everyone's
was
lost
hot,
their
though. It
fucking
sucked.
mind.
Oh my god.
I had a roommate who I got him, you know the Jada Kiss song "Why"?
Yeah.
Oh
He
hell
has
yeah!
That he's like.
How do
has
you
that
know that song?
Yeah, what?
I had a roommate who was very
whitest
much.
person I've ever seen.
Well, I had a
It's
roommate
not a
at
great
the time
song,
who was
but
into
sure.
It's all right. The Bush to knock down the towers part's pretty funny, but there's a part in the song where he's like
It's true.
leading a march and he has a shirt that just says "Y" on it, and my roommate like wanted that shirt, so I just like got him that font in a shirt for his birthday once, and he made it his Tinder profile picture and like photoshopped himself into the video, and of course he matched with some girl who was like, "You're you're photoshopping yourself in front of a Black Lives Matter protest? That's problematic as fuck."
Wow.
That's why he did it. Yeah.
Okay.
I once, before we move on, I took a girl to the cellar and
The Comedy Cellar.
Her cellar,
Yeah.
his cellar.
yeah,
Okay.
to my cellar.
Please clarify, David.
I am a murderer.
This is where David confessed. It's
No.
a true crime.
I took her to the Comedy Cellar, and they asked us, "Hey, do you want to sit up front?" And before I could like be like, "No," she was like, "Oh yeah, let's sit up front." So Artie Fook was hosting, and he does crowd work with us. And then he's like, "Are you guys on a date?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "What date?" And it was like, "It's our third date." And then he just pantomimes me fucking her on stage.
Cool.
And that was the last time I ever saw this woman.
Yeah, of course.
Had you had sex yet?
No.
Can I ask a
And
question?
he was like, "That's how he's gonna fuck me." Yeah.
Why is New York comedy, especially the club scene, so hell bent on asking people in the front row if they're on a date? What the fuck is that?
I mean, it's just they push crowd work, and that's what you ask when you do crowd work, I guess.
I think it's just what you think you're supposed to ask. Like, what do you do? Are you on a date?
Because you're gonna get uncomfortable answers, and that will lead to tension that you can break, I guess.
yeah, I don't know. I've just never seen it like really crush.
Oh, I see it crush all the time.
see it
and it
crush, yeah.
sucks. I
No.
hate it. It's like a thing where like hosts, it's like the host is expected to do crowd work here, and it like kind of drives me nuts.
What I see is, I mean, this is probably just because I'm doing all these bar shows and shit, is that I see like 10 comics in a row come through a show. None of them watch the show. So they all go up and they all ask the
They do the
same
same crowd
couple,
work.
"Are you on
Yeah.
a date?" And then the answer is like yes, and they're like, Tinder, and then it just kind of pitters out from there.
Yeah.
You would think that, I don't know. I'm not gonna fucking go in on this that hard, but it's just something new. Just do material. What's wrong with material? I don't know.
I think we were just talking about what's wrong with material.
You're right,
I do
man.
remember-
I
I will-
just hate comedy.
I will say I remember seeing Sean Donnelly once, and he was doing crowd work, and he accidentally said something like kind of problematic or offensive or whatever, and everybody got really uncomfortable. And his response, he was just like, "Oh, did I just say something racist? Whoops!" And it like won everyone back. He just like owned up to it really quickly.
Well, yeah. I mean, as a comedian, you're supposed to be like a self-professed idiot.
yeah.
That's the fucking problem.
Right.
Is that we came up with this like weird liberal like concept of like comedians are like modern day philosophers. And it's like they're fucking drug addicts that don't have jobs. Like, why are you putting too much pressure on these people? That's why you're so furious when they say something, offensive or whatever. Because
They're philosophers in that like the public can name 4 of them. That's about it. Yeah.
yeah.
And we're all molesting children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Oh yeah,
it's
for
a big
sure.
part. Just like the
Not
I'm
all of
doing it
us
right
have
now.
cellars. All right.
All right. What's in the news?
All right, yeah, let's get into it. Enough comedy bullshit. Jeremy Corbyn.
Woo!
Yeah.
The boy.
The boy over in across the pond is, I'm not sure if I read this correctly. He's planning on basically buying houses for tons and tons.
Well, he wants to.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The whole thing is, when I become prime minister or whatever. But he's proposing this whole thing where he's buying like tons and tons of houses for the massive amount of homeless people in the UK. He's okay, how do I tie this into this? Does anyone have the article up in front of them?
I have Telegraph article
Let's do it.
about. Well, see, when I read the headline, it sounded like the Labour Party would buy the houses, which would be really cool. What if they just started doing shit before they even took office to prepare the masses?
It sounds like they're trying to Bernie bro Corbyn now, because the story that came out earlier today is the Labor Council leader quits after sexism and bullying by Jeremy Corbyn supporters. And I don't want to say, deny that maybe that happened to her, and that's unfortunate and that should be taken seriously. But I definitely see like a trend in UK politics trying to mimic.
To be fair, if you have a house full of homeless people, there's going to be some.
They just didn't learn the PC rules, dude.
Part of it too is that Corbyn's rise happened almost exclusively through the internet. Like that's almost exclusively where his good press and his good media came in. Like the newspapers, even the very progressive newspapers like The Guardian, hated him. They did not write anything nice about him. The BBC was like completely trashing him. So his only activity his supporters are going to like be able to mediate information through is like Twitter and social media. And of course, you're going to have a lot of trolls.
One of the Gallagher brothers from Oasis was like, "Fuck Jeremy Corbyn. He's a communist." I'm like, yeah, dude, cool.
yeah.
Isn't that J.K. Rowling's whole thing? Like, she hates him?
Yeah, was she told people to
she's New
vote
Labour.
Was she told people to vote for the Tories, right?
Lib
Yeah,
Dems.
yeah.
Or
Well, she was kind of like a British version of a neoliberalist, in which a lot of her arguments were like, it's too risky, and like, the kids are gonna fuck up this election.
Oh, she's like the Joyanne Reid of
she's
which is weird because their
centrist.
elections don't like work the same way as ours. They're much more free to take risks on stuff like that.
And it's like, surprise, surprise, the lady who wrote Harry Potter has childish views about politics.
Yeah, no shit. And she's also, it also tells you something about the fact that she's so fucking rich and speaks the same way that rich assholes speak over here on our side of the pond, regardless of the way that the actual like primaries and shit like that break down. So it really kind of, to me, it serves as evidence that like these people don't actually believe the things they're saying. They actually have financial interests.
And do you think the people who are like liberals, like even liberals we know that like support this bullshit, like support Joyanne Reid, even there's something like retweet her, or like retweet Jay? Do you think it's because they think they're just going to be rich one day? Like everyone, that old American ideology where it's like, well, I'm not. Poor people don't think they're poor because they're just they think of themselves as rich
like,
people that aren't rich yet.
It's like the Kennedys. It's like maybe they might not reach that status, but they'll still feel some sort of communion with these people.
I don't know. I think of it in like kind of twofold, because on some level there is that temporarily embarrassed millionaire thing. I think like there are people that think of it in terms of all this stuff's going to work out for them, and those people a lot of the times, either they're upper class, like secretly, like you said, a lot in like fucking New York comedy scene, or just in New York in general. Like there's just a lot of secret rich people, who like their politics are informed because they're like, no, I am going to be rich, and they probably are. Or you got people that are super poor that also are like, oh, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to slip at the Walmart or whatever, and that's kind of the same thing. But I also like. I think that some of this shit has to do with something much larger than that. That's like psychological, because like the reason that so much of this like crazy leftist thought is so appealing to me is because there was a time in my life when I was completely brainwashed, like kind of gelled over, and like just was uninformed and really, really convinced, especially by Texas where I was living, that like this stuff is outlandish and impossible and risky and will cost you the election and yada, yada, yada. I mean, that's where all this thought comes from or whatever. Yeah. So, like, when I look at people going crazy on Twitter that are, like, retweeting J.K. Rowling, I'm not certain that they're, like, ideologically, informed and really into neoliberalism. I think they're just, like, freaking the fuck out. And this is, someone they can look to as, like, a leader.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the thing. I think it's like a slippery slope where people work under the assumption that far left stuff can't work. Yeah. And then once they start saying that, they kind of over time become conservative. Like, I've talked to like a few Hillary Clinton supporters who are just making right-wing arguments against this stuff, where it's kind of, and it's not the case. I mean, I understand like why after 2 terms of Reagan and then 1 term of George H.W. Bush that Bill Clinton's new Democratic politics seemed appealing, but it's like in practice it hasn't worked that well.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It was just an extension
either.
of trickle down. And also, a lot of the people who were saying single payer will never happen are the people fucking being like, yeah, hell yeah, Kamala Harris. When that is in direct opposition to whatever the fuck they were pledging for months ago. But the other thing,
Kamala Harris, who just came out for single payer.
yeah, co-sponsoring the bill,
Sure,
and
yeah.
And who knows if she'll actually
She came
support
out
it?
as gay
Probably
for
not.
single payer.
Yeah, she probably won't support it, but still, like
Yeah.
that symbolism is like valuable in
Yeah.
some short-term way. But the other thing about tying into my earlier point about these people think they're gonna be like, I have a lot of friends, like minority friends, who like care about like shit about like the Grammys and like POC's winning the Grammy, and like I get that like representation is important. I'm not like you're a fucking idiot if you don't think it's at least important, but to think that that's like a mark of real progress is crazy to me. But I think
I don't know.
about
I think Apu and The Simpsons did a lot.
yeah, totally. Well, we got that great documentary out.
Yeah,
But,
I have a documentary too. It's called My Solution, Apu.
voiced by me, so it's like not problematic anymore. It's just a poo, but my voice just talking like a dude who grew up in Minnesota. But
Well,
no,
that thing with like the Grammys, representation of the Grammys and stuff, it's really kind of a bummer because these people are obsessed with the symptoms and not the disease.
Exactly.
So if we have representation in the Grammys, then that's just a way of make-believing that the symptom
it's trickle down
is,
representation, and
all-
part
the
of
disease
it,
must
I have
be
a theory.
cured, too.
Also, these same people will freak out at Kanye when he will go on the stage and call out the awards show for in it.
For
I don't know
not
about-
like giving Beyonce a Grammy.
Yeah, which is like, if this matters so much to you, why are you against the one guy who's doing anything about it?
Yeah,
Who's
and
just
he
standing
did
up to
it
people?
because Beyonce had the best album that year. Yeah, or he thought that. I thought that was
I mean, art
but,
is subjective, but
yeah, exactly. But like, and my theory is a lot of these
I still
people
think the Bloodhound Gang got robbed.
don't. I got a little theory about these people don't care about equality. They just want a seat at the table, and they're hoping in the back of their mind that will trickle down to the masses.
Well, that's
but
the
that's
greatest
never worked. That's
fucking
never worked.
trick the devil ever played.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
It's-
instead of fixing the whole fucking thing, the solution is giving you a seat at the table or whatever. That's
Yeah.
why everyone in America. That's that whole temporarily embarrassed millionaires thing or whatever. It's
Yeah.
the idea is you individually. That's why identity politics sucks, because the concept of identity politics is you as an individual, and it's very anti-collective action or whatever. So when we see other people as individuals achieving something by getting a Grammy or whatever, then that's just like somehow vaguely justice for you too, because you can too or whatever.
Counter is, I think, identity politics is good, but the way it's weaponized by Democrats, in that if we just get a black congressman or president in, like, this will have a net effect on the larger population.
I know what you mean, and I think I've had this conversation with you probably before.
Probably.
But I think you're
But
right.
they think that's enough, and that's the problem.
I think you're right, and I think but you're right about the fact that so that whole cognitive dissonance there you just described at the end is so pervasive in American society that it's like we can't go back. Like, now identity politics is this festering thing because it's caused a rift and it's been weaponized, and it's like really hard to just be like, we need it, but also economic shit. Like,
Well,
now
I think
you're on one side or
it's
the other.
also like coming to terms with these things. These identities don't have to be fixed, and that they are constantly in flux and changing, and that they are holding us back, and they're not necessarily things we should cling to and try to strengthen our stake in.
Well, it's also a way. I get what you mean by it's anti-collective action, but it's also a kind of a diversion from class-based collective action, where now you're thinking of yourself as part of a larger group that's like your gender or things like that. Like, I have a lot of friends. I am friends with women who are very hardcore Hillary Clinton, and I'm friends with women who are very hardcore Bernie Sanders. Like, back.
It's impossible. They don't exist.
yeah.
And the dividing line was always if they.
Oh, you
grew
mean
up-
women who are hardcore Trump? They're basically the same.
Well, hardcore Trump is actually my Pornhub search. The dividing line between them.
Mine's hardcore Bernie.
Just like an old dude getting an STD.
When you join the DSA, there's several hours of Bernie Sanders-based porn you have to watch.
Yeah, that's what's kept people from joining.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah, it's like MK Ultra. They, like, strap you into a chair.
But yeah, the dividing line was always class. It would always be if my friend, she didn't grow up with money, she would be very hardcore Bernie. And if you grow up upper middle class or rich, and you're a white woman, also race should be it, then you're really your only kind of like barriers, aside from the awful shit that all women have to deal with, is just kind of like not being promoted as highly as you want in your corporate structure. Like it's a totally different. So having that kind of symbolic representation would benefit them.
Yeah.
But it's also like not. It doesn't really affect the rest of the country. It's
No.
not a
Well,
solution.
something that doesn't
Yeah.
have an effect benefiting you is kind of a symptom of you not having a problem to begin with.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a good point.
or at least not understanding the problem. Because I mean, we're all even people that are kind of considered like well off in America are still fucked.
still struggling.
Bit,
Yeah,
you know,
still
that-
paying buried on their medical bills or something.
Yeah, like they
Yeah,
just
it's
don't
like it's
understand it.
not. It's like they're right about one thing, but they're wrong about the other, thinking that's enough.
Well,
that's how I feel about it.
That's also an interesting thing. Is like there's the poor people who think that they're just like the temporary embarrassed millionaires thing, but there's also the fact that no rich person thinks of themselves as rich. Everybody always feels like money's tight.
They
I feel like it's an
they think
American
of themselves.
thing,
They
though.
just need more. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Koch brothers are just like need more. It's fucking crazy. What are they doing? What do they want? Just build a golden blimp and fly it into the sun.
We're tired of being the Koch brothers. We want to be the fentanyl brothers now.
Yeah.
That's where the money is.
I said this earlier, but I there needs to be a lefty counter, like a pack to them that's just called the woke brothers.
Like WOCH.
WOCH. Yeah.
People are like, who are the
I tried it on
Wachowski-
Twitter.
The
It did not work.
Wachowski. The Wachowski
Sisters.
They are not
Siblings,
The Wachowski
siblings.
siblings.
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go. That's woke.
Shout out.
Are they both trans women now?
I think just
Yeah.
one.
I
Wait,
heard
they're both?
No, they're
No,
both.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
They're both
they,
trans.
They
yeah.
like staggered
Shut
it
me up.
through 10 of those Matrix movies, but they're both fully transitioned now, I think.
Which is nuts. I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah.
Completely bananas. So
Yep.
I want to talk about that Corbyn stuff because it relates to this article that I found today about a bunch of squatters who took over this big house in London and are just using it as a homeless shelter, I guess, until maybe all this Labour Party stuff comes into place. But I'll read from it right now. A veteran group of squatters has occupied an empty 15 million euro central London property purchased by a Russian oligarch in 2014 and opened it as a homeless shelter. The extensive 5-story Grade 2 listed Eaton Square property was bought by Andrei Goncharenko. Okay, a little-known oligarch who has bought. His name.
Just your humble run of the mill.
A little-known oligarch who has bought a number of luxury properties in London in recent years. So some crazy rich Russian oligarch bought this like historical building. The squatters, autonomous nation of anarchist libertarians known as ANAL, autonomous nation of anarchist libertarians, who made their acronym a joke. Said they entered the building through an open window on the 23rd of January and have accommodated about 25 homeless people so far, many of whom have been sleeping rough around Victoria Station. And the rest of the article is a bunch of pictures of them that look like the Breakfast Club, but with crusties. Half of them have masks on. It's very cute.
Well, those are the kind of libertarians I like, where kind of what that used to be like, where it's just like, let's just fix shit on our own, and they went and did it. Like, a libertarian in the United States would just like argue that we should be killing homeless people for fun, and why can't the government stop us?
Yeah, libertarian's a real dirty word, and like in America right now, and rightly so. But there's a completely other libertarian ideology that has to do with anarchism. That's kind of like left wing.
Exactly.
It's just that you know, it makes us think of like goatees and shit over here, fucking swords and stuff.
And reptiles.
So, this Intercept article was covered on Chapo, which probably people at this point listening to this podcast already listen to. So, we won't go directly into it and cover the whole thing, but you said there was something.
Some humorous things about it that
Some
they
funny
left out.
stuff. Yeah. Well, as they talked about, like, the Democrats, and, as we were discussing earlier, like, people who are centrists and convince themselves into being conservatives sometimes, like, the actual strategists and people who are in charge of pulling the strings don't actually care that much about winning, which is the thing they always say that we need to focus on as an excuse to, like, take the legs out from under the left. So, like, Emanuel in 2006 is credited for, like, this wave election in the midterms back then, but there's a lot of evidence showing that it probably would have gone that way anyway, and they would have even picked up more seats.
Would have been bigger if they didn't focus on the conservative Democrats.
Yeah.
And also Howard Dean was there, and the 50-state strategy was his idea.
Yeah, 'twas. But there was a little red state by the name of Tennessee where there was a person running for office named Steve Cohen, who, and this is quoting from the article, much to Emanuel's displeasure, Cohen ran a far-to-left campaign in 2006 and won a Memphis district. A white man in a minority-majority district, he was presumed to be a one-termer and drew a well-funded challenger in 2008, Nikki Tinker. She won endorsements of Emily's List, yada, yada. Cohen suspected that Emanuel was working against him, but had no firm evidence until one day he was having breakfast at the bar at Bistro B, a Washington restaurant, after Tinker had announced her bid. He saw Tinker in the restaurant, and then he saw Emanuel. Rahm came in and walked around and saw me and danced around like doing a pirouette, like he had to pee or something, dancing on his toes, said Cohen, describing the jittery reaction of the Chicago Pole who had famously studied ballet as a young man.
So Rahm Emanuel told this guy, "Oh, I'm not working with your opponent," and then walked into a restaurant like sitcom style. And was like, "Oh, I'm just dancing through here right now."
Yeah,
It's like when Urkel had two different dates at the same time.
Yeah.
And this is, by the way, in 2008. So this is after Cohen had already won and was an incumbent at this point. So he was working on a primary challenge, like to unseat an incumbent. Like he does not. He's ideological. This is an ideology.
Oh yeah,
Like he cares just as much about his ideology as anyone else.
Yeah.
for sure.
I want to fight Rahm Emanuel so bad.
I mean, when you started telling me about this case, and you said, "Oh, he's a Jewish congressman," I'm like, "This isn't going to end well."
Yeah. Well, let's look at some of the shit because they ran a campaign, and this is the one Emanuel was behind, who is of the Semitic people, I believe.
Yeah, he's Jewish.
Yeah, but they ran a campaign against Steve Cohen where they handed out flyers that said, "Cohen and the Jews hate Jesus," and called upon black Christians to support one black Christian and oppose this opponent of Christ and Christianity.
You know what this reminds me of? Do you remember that guy that was running for office in like Long Island last year or something? That was just
it was like Jewish landlords.
Oh, the Jew landlords!
yeah,
they're coming. We're gonna get rid of the Jew landlords.
Yeah.
He, like, just unironically.
And they had to convince him to take that out of his campaign message.
Whatever happened to him? Did he win?
Yeah, I think he's like the
I
president.
hope
of New
so. I
York
can't
now.
stand my fucking Jew landlord.
He's the president of Long Island.
Yeah.
He's the president of Long Island.
Because if you could say so many nasty things about landlords, and I would be 110% on board.
But then
Yeah.
you bring the religion into
Yeah.
it.
We're gonna have a Checkers on every block. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, holy shit. Yeah, so that's fucking crazy. I'm sure no one will believe that that's real, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like what you said. Everything they fault the left for, like, oh, you can't primary an incumbent. They just do
Yeah,
themselves.
they just did that, yeah.
capriciously. Yeah, and
Fuck them. And they're like gonna lose, Like 2018 looks like it's gonna be a little wave, not a tidal wave, like a little,
I doubt
a
it.
wave you can body surf on.
Well, it's going to be split down this ideological difference, right? Because we still have all these people, these like sort of mainstream Democrats that are like, the strategy is to peel off these racists and get them to vote for us by being racist. Meanwhile, like there's, just a clear alternative, which is this sort of Bernie-esque leftism where you can peel off people that didn't vote.
Yeah.
You don't have to court the worst people in America, the fucking 25% or whatever that voted Republican. Like, there's this whole other 50% of people that don't vote.
It's also funny how much deliberation goes on into and it just turns into navel gazing. Like with the Joe Kennedy thing, think of how many consultants they went through for the State of the Union response.
Yeah.
And at the end, they're just like, fuck it, just give it to this show.
It's because he looks like a better-looking Trump.
It's because
Essentially,
Trump is
that
orange.
You know what
He's orange, so he'll peel off some of the people that voted for Trump because he's orange.
America wants a new Chappaquiddick, and they want it now.
So the arguments people were making is that, this is the Democrats introducing new people into the party, and not new at all. That just because the dude graduated from Harvard from 2009, actually, which he's new in the sense that he's new to electoral politics or mainstream politics. But the fact is, like, they probably went through a bunch of people and they just settled on this motherfucker because he has a familiar name.
Also, can you imagine, after all that's happened, being a Kennedy and still going into politics?
Yeah,
like,
right.
You're the one who's not going to get fucking
Well, that guy's gonna die.
We were watching his DNC speech. What was the word that he was talking? Because he apparently was a student.
Oh
of
God, it's so funny. So
Yeah.
he introduced Liz Warren at the 2016 DNC, and he's trying so hard to sell it. He's trying to be so folksy, and he's not. And apparently, he was a in Elizabeth Warren's law class, whatever. And she was a professor, and he was sitting in the front, and he was like, "Hey, what?" She looked at him and was like, "What is the definition of the word assumption?" I think
Assumption or
assumptive.
It's
Assumption. It
assumption.
stopped with an. Stopped with
It's
an
a weird
N.
word.
But
And we like
it
watched
sounds
the
it's a word.
video.
It's a weird word, and there are two things that's really funny about that. Is like that was his like example of like adversity he had to like. That was like his source of inspiration for the speech. Is like, well, one time I was in a class with her and she made me feel stupid.
It
And
sounds
it's
like how R. Kelly would refer to sex. Like, I'm going to give you a little of something.
It's like one time I was hanging out when I moved here. I was like real depressed and stuff, and my sister works in finance, and she's a lovely person, but she's got a lot of finance bro friends. And I was like having a hard week, and I was talking to one of her like girlfriends, and she's like, it was really hard for me when I moved here too. And this person is like works for a hedge fund and really sucks. And she's like, and I had just like lost my job and was like broke. And she's like, yeah, it was really hard for me when I came here too. Like one day I was leaving my job and it just started raining. And I didn't have my umbrella, and I just had to run to find a cab. And I'm like, this is like what they think adversity is.
Yeah, I meet a lot of people in New York, like doing stand up, who are like, they'll sort of like try to level with you on shit and go like, do you know when your door guy talks to you when you're just trying to get home? And just on the, like, between us and everyone listening, these people are all UCB students.
Yeah.
When you want to tip 30%, but you can only tip 25, like
Yeah, dude,
You know
people
when
love
your
fake
butler gives you the
adversity.
wrong kind of caviar, so
Yeah.
Remember when
so you send him in the hole for a week?
That's like when Krusty the Clown. You remember when Krusty the Clown did stand up, and when he first
Yeah.
tries it,
Yeah.
he's like, "Don't you hate it when the butler?"
He would kill in Brooklyn right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that iteration of Krusty. There was this think piece I got in a lot of trouble for talking about on Facebook that was like, this big like feminist.
Please tell
angle.
me it has to do with Krusty the Clown.
It has to do with Krusty the Clown.
the problem with Krusty the Clown.
Well, that was a thing that I thought about that documentary.
Probably.
Is there's a character on The Simpsons whose name is Old Jewish Man. Like, that's the name of the character.
Oh, for real?
Oh yeah.
Like, there.
Wait.
I think
Not
I know
old
who
man.
you're talking about.
Yeah, so he's got like kind of he's balding. He lives in the old folks' home with Grandpa.
Yeah.
There's one character
hangs out
that's
with
called
Loman.
Mr. Sparkle, and he's a Japanese stereotype. And it's the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
There's
my
Bumblebee Man too.
Yeah,
Can
Bumblebee
you say
Man,
Bumblebee
like-
Man is racist?
Luigi.
The problem.
Dude,
with
it's
Bumblebee
all
Man.
it's all racist, trust me. But
Yeah.
like Dude, Mr. Sparkle is like my favorite Simpsons gag, and I'm probably going to get a tattoo of him. And this chair I'm sitting in just collapsed. And that's my cue out, guys. I got to go.
All right,
It wasn't a
Raghav.
chair you were sitting on.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a chair. It was a fucking
That was
great.
cool as hell.
Well, thanks. Follow me on ACLU Official. There's more to this podcast. But, yeah, good to be here.
Yeah, let's do plugs before we get into this next part. I'm not sure if I'm going to chop it up or not. I am going to talk about Antifa next, which is why Raghav is leaving. He loves fascists. So he's storming out of the room. No, follow Raghav at ACLU Official. I'm at Feral Jokes. You know that. You are...
I am at Anders Lee here. Check our show out next Friday at Star Bar Paid Protest. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then I have another show Valentine's Day at Pete's Candy Store 10.
Yeah. Also, I'm doing a fucking weird dating show at Union Hall on February 7th. We're playing a...
Which is... Oh, that's... Okay.
It's
never mind.
a Bachelorette meets comedy show.
That sounds...
It sounds
Great.
like something I would do. Yeah. It totally fits my personality.
So
but yeah, come to...
stand up and then you have to marry
We
a
do,
woman?
yeah, we do like there's a lady and it's me and 3 other comics. It's me, all great comics. Rojo Perez is gonna be there, Daniel Simonson and Albert Kirchner, and we're gonna do some games and challenges, maybe some stand up. And then this lady is gonna embarrass us and pick one of us.
That's the lineup? Are they expecting the women to keep their clothes on? this
Uh,
whole thing? It's
we'll
ridiculous.
see, yeah.
You're nerds.
And you have
But
to,
yeah.
and you have to get her pregnant. Is that the whole thing? She's looking for an heir.
Yeah, that's why she picked all 4 of us. Yeah, blossoming stand-ups. But
It's like Game of Thrones.
game of chodes. But all right. See you guys. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye, Raghav.
Okay. Now that Raghav is gone, I'm just kidding. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty light news week. Other than that, what? Elon Musk is selling fucking flamethrowers. You could
What?
you can put give that to me. You can put Nicolas Cage's face in any movie now. Technology's run amok. Do you not know about the?
I don't know about the flamethrower thing.
Elon Musk is apparently selling flamethrowers for like $600 on the internet. Someone pointed it out, and then he tweeted out a thing that was like, "JK, LOL, the accusations that I am trying to start a zombie apocalypse to sell these flamethrowers are not true."
It's like no one said anything about that.
Did he?
Yeah,
did
he just caught up to 2007 internet humor, like zombie apocalypse jokes. That guy fucking sucks.
Did you hear the other thing he said recently that made me laugh so hard? There was this like Eyes Wide Shut Silicon Valley type sex party that he was spotted at.
Yeah, and he was like, I was just hanging out there at the buffet or some shit.
He said, I went there thinking it was a costume party, and the minute I noticed people were having sex, I promptly left.
You know why that's so funny? Is because it could be a complete bullshit lie or completely true, and it's fucking funny either way.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he could be completely fucking with us, and, you know, he's a tech nerd. Sure, he found some crazy fucking sex party on the internet. On the other hand, he could be such a dork that he was like, Fidelio, you know? And he thought it was like, we're going to play Mad Libs when I go inside or whatever.
I brought Settlers of Catan. Oh, my God.
yeah.
School for a year or two, and you know you've seen it all. And out is coming, and you'll go far back east. Your time don't crawl. Play ethnic jazz to parade your snares on your background stereo. Bragging that you know how the niggas feel cold, and the sun's got so much so. It's time to taste what you owe.